This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro, episode number 38.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Hey, what's up to all the 18 Strong golfers out there? This is Jeff Pellizzaro, physical therapist, golf fitness professional, and the host of the 18 Strong Podcast. As always, I want to thank you for coming to the show and listening. We've got another great guest for you today. And hopefully this past weekend you had a chance to watch a little golf. I know that it was Mother's Day and we were celebrating and honoring our mothers and wives, but I felt a little bad because I was not at the dinner table for Mother's Day. I was sitting on the couch glued to the TV as Ricky Fowler was pulling off one of the greatest finishes to a tournament with the Players Championship here at 2015. So hopefully you guys got a chance to watch that. It was incredible golf and loved every minute of it. Loved watching Ricky, who is a guy that I've really started to like over the past year or so. At first kind of thought he was a little bit of a, show off, kind of a brazen young individual wearing the orange, but really has turned out to be such a generous ambassador of the game of golf, and I just really hope to see him do some really great things in the future, and I think we're definitely going to see that. And so, speaking of Ricky, he was just bombing drives this past weekend. I mean, he had drives, 330 on 18, and it was just kind of crushing it. And Ricky's not a very big guy. And so our guest today is Andrew Fischer, or many in the golf world know him as Fish. And Fish worked with one of the longest bombers out there, Bubba Watson, for, I believe, 5 years. And so today Fish is going to talk to us a little bit about, what is it about these kind of guys that allows them to hit a ball so far, because obviously we all want to hit a ball further. And so Fish gives us some insight on, what it was that worked so well and works so well with Bubba, and what were the things that they had to work on. What were some of the things they had to put some concentration into in order to make sure that his game was at its highest level. And so Andrew's got some great stuff to share with us there. And then we just talk about some other different areas of golf and golf instruction. And Fish has taken a little bit of a different approach than many of the individuals we've had on the podcast, where he's kind of meshing a lot of different skills. He's got a great background of medical, golf fitness, and even getting into some swing instruction. So it takes a little bit of a different approach at working with some of his individuals than some of the other guests that we've had on in the past. So we've got a great episode. And of course, speaking of hitting a ball longer, I'm not sure that Bubba has actually read the ebook yet, but you can go and get your free ebook, 5 yards in less than 5 minutes, from 18 Strong as a gift to you. It's at 18strong.com/5yardsbook. That's the number 5 yards book. And again, have gotten some great feedback on the book, have had some swing instructors and golf coaches that are actually implementing it into their junior programs to work on some speed and power development for their younger players. So go ahead and get that. So hope you guys enjoy this interview with Fish, and I will catch you on the other side. Hey, Andrew Fischer, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, and thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. I really appreciate it.
To all the 18 Strong listeners out there, we've got Andrew Fischer, better known in the golf and fitness world as Fish. And Fish has a great story that I'm going to let him expand on and let him kind of tell his background and how he got into golf and the fitness world. But he is the owner of FishFit and was recently living in Florida, but now you're in Arizona. Is that right, Fish?
Yeah, correct. I'm in the golf mecca of the West now.
Nice. Very nice. And you worked a few years with Bubba Watson. I know you worked with a ton of other golfers from amateur level, professional level. So give the 18 Strong listeners your background, the story of how you went from basically sleeping in your car, from what I understand, to training golfers on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that's quite the road, huh?
Absolutely.
A few things in between there. Yeah, actually graduated college, and like every kid that graduates college, didn't really know what he wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to know my passions, though. So I knew I loved fitness. I knew I loved golf. And at this particular time, 2004-ish, Tiger had already set a precedent for fitness in the golfing world, which was great for me because golfers were slowly on that trend to get fit. So So it worked out great for me. So I took some time as like a prerequisite for school, and I became a massage therapist. I became a personal trainer. I actually became a Graston certified ART practitioner. I mean, you name it. I got all these skills. Nutritionist. I got skills that I thought my golfer could utilize. And then I showed up, and I thought it was if you build it, they will come kind of formula. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Nobody actually gave me time of day. So it got expensive quick being out on the road. It doesn't matter if you're traveling on the PGA Tour, if you're grinding out like the mini tour players, you still have to pay your costs for travel, and they're the same for everybody. So a guy who doesn't have much money but just a dream, well, my car was my sanctuary for a few years, and I was traveling on the Hooters Tour and the PGA Tour, and it was all to just meet people, meet connections, and just kind of rise up through the ranks. And then I was hoping for the cream would rise to the top kind of per se analogy.
Sure. And so when you were kind of following the tour around, going to the different events, I mean, how were you getting in front of guys and those guys that maybe gave you a chance? What were you doing with them? Because I would imagine you're traveling in your car. You don't have a ton of equipment. You don't have a ton of resources. What did that look like?
Yeah, no, actually, I had to deviate my plan like anyone. You make the perfect business plan, and then you realize it's nothing what it needs to be like. So I actually I figured out really quickly that although a trainer wasn't needed in a mandatory way, a caddy was. And so that's what I moved into. I moved into caddying for these guys and saying, hey, look, forget about the training and the nutrition. Let me caddy for you. And that's how I built relationships with my players. And then from there, I actually moved into fitness and nutrition. And keep in mind, it wasn't a big sell back then. It was a hard sell. Most players couldn't afford that stuff, and if they could, they weren't really interested in it. I actually remember specifically a particular story where I was working for Ryan Moore, and I was doing nutrition, I was caddying for him, I was doing therapy, I was doing training with him, and I remember specifically a player that I didn't know very well, Bubba Watson at the time, was telling Ryan how stupid of an idea it was to stay in shape. You just hit a golf ball. You don't need to actually be fit. I remember this vividly. And then, of course, a few years later, I end up working for Mr. Watson. So everything comes full circle. It's funny.
So he had a little bit of a change of heart once he kind of saw what was going on and the direction that things were heading.
Yeah, I think he never won before. He'd come close, but he'd never had one. And he's so talented. And it was one of those, is this going to be the guy who was so talented and just never quite got that PGA Tour win? It was just a matter of time before he would win. At least that's what everyone was saying. But he hadn't won, and it had been a couple years. And then in 2009, I actually jumped on the team, and he started playing great. And I mean, obviously, we changed a lot of things, and that's kind of the rest is history. He's just gone on to become just a super dominant power, and I think he'll continue to do so, and maintaining still to this day, his health and nutrition and that level of fitness.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of the most exciting guys to watch out there, and I'm sure you've got some great stories, and hopefully we'll have a chance to get to some of them. Just the way he shapes a ball and it just has fun out there on the course. And, I'm sure that there's some great things that you've seen firsthand that you can share with us. And I want to kind of tie in kind of a big topic that's going on in the golf world, the fitness world. And that's obviously Bubba's one of the farthest hitters on the tour, if not the farthest. And, not a big guy, skinny guy. How tall is he, by the way?
He's about 6. He's close to 6'4". He's 6'3". He's just shy of 6'4".
Okay, so he's got some height to him, but
yeah, he's like 6'3" and a quarter or something like that.
So we look at him, how far he hits a ball. We look at just this past weekend, Ricky Fowler winning the Players Championship, and he was bombing balls this week. But again, a much shorter guy in stature. Again, a thin guy, not a big guy. What is it about guys like that allows them to hit a ball so far? Because obviously the listeners every golfer wants to hit a ball farther. And what is it about those guys that's so special that allows them to just smash them the way they do?
Well, one, they're just super athletes. It's funny, actually, you could ask them why they hit it so far, and they would probably tell you they have no idea. I've always asked them. I mean, I'm around some of the players in the world, so I'd say, hey, what do you do specifically to hit the ball further? I don't know. I can tell you, actually, Bubba one time told me the key to hitting it far for me is to really pull my lat towards the ball, and this is that side muscle on this, on this rest under your armpit. Just pull that really hard, and it just seems to go far. And I thought to myself, oh, is that all?
Right.
So, these guys are in perfect impact positions at the ball, and they're maintaining an immense amount of club head stability through the ball. And that's why they can actually not just hit it far, but actually hit it accurately. And the amateur does not move his body correctly. That's just the difference. It's like you can put somebody who's like a decent swimmer against Michael Phelps, but it's not gonna amount to much because you're gonna flail. You're gonna swim as fast as you can. It's like the guy who's just going swimming in the lane next to you, nice and slow, and he's passing you with these long, lazy, efficient strokes, and you're flailing around, not getting anywhere. Super inefficient. And that's where we see most amateurs' golf swings. Super inefficient. They do not use the body positions, or they don't execute those body movements properly, and they don't get into those body positions that they need. And that's kind of really interesting topic, because I believe that golf is going to move into an educational body position movement versus just a club positional movement.
Yeah, I think, with these guys, and most of the time when a golfer is looking to gain more speed, the average golfer is typically a guy who maybe hasn't been playing all of his life, but these guys have been playing for a long time. And Bubba, for sure, is a guy who just kind of taught himself how to swing. And I think just ingrained those movements over time and just kind of learned how his own body worked. And as he said, became a lot more efficient in his movements. And I think that, as let's say, quote unquote, the average golfer, the guy who's maybe in his early 50s, he's looking at Bubba Watson thinking, how do I do that? Well, it was ingrained from a long, long time ago, and those movement patterns and firing patterns from the brain to the different muscle sequences have really developed over time, plus the ability for his joints to move in those certain directions. And if you're going from being a desk jockey in your 50s to all of a sudden expecting to hit a ball like Bubba Watson, it's just not going to happen like that.
No, it's not. I'm not under the rule of thumb that person will never be able to hit like Bubba. It just takes a significant amount of work. And let's just be honest, the weekend warrior, he's deemed that because he only works, plays golf on the weekends.
Right.
And he works during the week. But I mean, there's no chance. You can't keep up with a guy who does it day in and day out and has a massage therapist working on his body every single day for mobility purposes, and has a nutritionist, and actually has all these things that are super important and imperative to hitting the ball miraculously day in and day out. So, when you're talking about somebody who's swung a golf club from a very, very young age, a junior, they learn to move the mass of the club around their body. And when you start the game later in life, we're stronger. And that's to our disadvantage because we don't know how to use our body efficiently. We end up manipulating the club because it's so light. It just feels like nothing in our hand. I mean, talk about a driver with these things like 10 ounces. Mm-hmm. How are you supposed to feel that on the end of a stick as you try to rear back as far as you can? What do you mean move the club around your body? How do you move that mass? I mean, there's nothing there. But when you're smaller, that was heavy for you. And so you learn, what do you have to do? I'm a big proponent of actually teaching young juniors, and if you just watch them, it's like movement patterns of a kid. Watch a kid swing a golf club. It's really, he just learns how to just move that club efficiently. You'll see him rear back, and he'll counter that weight by leaning forward a little bit and throwing the club behind him in the back phase. And then on the down phase, he'll actually move back towards, away from the target. And then it's what we call hang back now, actually, in adults who don't properly shift their weight. But then he throws the club through. And it's a really interesting, because you'll see it's like, wow, he's countering the weight like you would a discus or like a hammer throw or something like that. It's really important to actually move your body almost to the opposite direction that you're swinging the mass. And when the club's so light, we don't realize that. We don't understand that concept, and we end up making a lot of swing deficiencies.
Yeah, I like that. I've never really kind of pictured it in that way, that as little kids. And it's funny because I was just watching my almost 2-year-old out in the front yard swinging a golf club. He's got his little Nerf clubs, and he's swinging. And then he went and he picked up my 7-year-old's club, and obviously it was way too heavy. And first he got mad, he got frustrated, and almost started crying because it was too heavy. But then you just kind of saw him figure it out. And not that he was able to make a full swing or anything, but he just kind of started moving his body around. And after a couple tries, he was able to at least kind of swing and, make contact with the ball and just push it a little bit, which he couldn't do, just 5 minutes ago. But our brains and our bodies are so smart that we start to adapt and figure out how to make our muscles move more efficiently. But you're right. Somebody who's just used to, we're big, strong guys. We pick up a 10-ounce piece of wood or fiberglass or whatever and metal and swing it, and yeah, it's not a problem. So our body doesn't have to problem solve to some extent. Now let's talk about. You mentioned that you think that the golf world is going in a bit of a different direction in regards to this stuff, the movement patterns, and explain a little bit further there how you. I know we were talking before the podcast about golf instruction and fitness and almost a melding of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of great organizations out there like TPI that are kind of pushing for, this team effort to bring a practitioner on board and to also bring on a golf instructor and to bring on a fitness golf TPI certified clinician. The thing is, it's very difficult because you're dealing with communication. You've got these golf instructors who really have been teaching feel tactics for the last 50, 100 years, whatever. And you've got these fitness professionals that are just really focused on fitness, and they understand the body, they understand moving weights efficiently, they understand, all the things that are encompassed into fitness, which just isn't just muscle building, which I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret that. But there needs to be this meshing, and I'm starting to see, the golf instructors learning more about the biomechanics of the body. And I'm starting to watch fitness professionals learn more about the mechanics of the golf swing. And they're coming together and they're moving towards each other. And I think we're going to see a synergy of overlapping. And I think obviously that will be a huge kind of push. Tiger's already kind of popularized it with the hiring of Chris Como as a biomechanical swing consultant. But I think that's going to be a current trend. We're going to start seeing golf instructors having that ability to not only understand the positions that the body need to be in, but also like a fitness, what can we do in the gym that's going to put those, that's going to help benefit the body in the actual impact position. For example, like if I'm staying very upright and I'm just throwing a medicine ball against the wall, what is that really doing? Look at the best players in the world at impact. Their spines aren't vertical. They're tilted. They maintain that little bit of tilt, a little bit of what we call lateral bend throughout the entire swing. So why are we not throwing medicine balls to simulate that lateral bend at impact? So I think there's a lot of things. So we're looking at the body and what it does and how it performs in the golf swing, and we're looking at what we do in the gym, and we're trying to mesh those two. So it's really going to be interesting to see, and I'm excited for this because this is my realm. I've never really been that interested in the golf swing, but I've always been fascinated with how the body moves. And now that they're kind of finding this middle ground, I'm now very interested in golf instruction, and I've actually even started teaching a little bit as well. So this is an exciting time for not just for everyone in the game of golf.
Yeah, I've definitely seen just over the past couple of years a trend where some of the better instructors are definitely learning a lot more about the body and what things are doing. And I see, online, and we're all connected in these different Facebook groups with golf fitness professionals and biomechanists. And, I'm even seeing a lot of the golf instructors that are involved in strength training programs, and they're, talking about not only their workouts, but the workouts that their clients are doing and how that's improving their games. And I just see the ones that are, again, the cream rising to the top, the better instructors are figuring out that in order to help their student get better, they need to learn more about the body and what it's doing, and that way they can kind of pick out some of the flaws and issues that they might be having, but also recognizing when it's their expertise and then when it's time to pass them on to somebody else.
Absolutely.
I equate it to when I was working in the physical therapy clinic and I'd be working with a surgeon. The surgeon was doing his job with an ACL repair or something like that. I tried to learn as much about that procedure and what that person was going through, going in and watching surgeries, things like that, so I could know as much as I could about that surgery. But I would never, ever think that I could go in and be the surgeon, right? But I always loved coming in contact with the surgeon who learned more about the rehab part too, because sometimes you'll find surgeons think, well, I fixed up the knee, that's fine, go do whatever as far as rehab's concerned, right. Not putting as much stock in that. But now we're kind of starting to see the golf instructors seeing more benefit from the physical side, much like the surgeon was seeing more benefit from the rehab side and learning more about it. And then we can all kind of talk much more intelligently about our clients, our patients, and move on from there. Do you find kind of the same relationship in your golf expertise?
Yeah, I do. I think what we're going to have to break is that traditional model of specification. In this particular realm, in the United States, we just are so adamant about specification. We believe that, not only, hey, my kid wants to be actually a water polo athlete. He wants to be in the Olympics. So he just water polo. And by the time he's 14, he doesn't want to even be near a pool. We push people to specify, to just be so specific in a skill set. And I think that's kind of, that kind of hurts us in the long run. Hey, my hands bother me. Well, you need to see a hand specialist. It's like you're going to a wrist doctor now instead of actually going to a general practitioner. I think there's some merit to that, and I would not ever say that there isn't. But it's just the mentality that we have, and it kind of, I think, pigeonholes a lot of us to learn and to grow as individuals, and that's the most important thing, in my personal opinion. I actually had an option to learn a specific skill set and then just apply that expertise to multiple players. I had that ability. I could have done that, but I actually chose to grab a facet of a lot of different skills and apply those to one player, and that's why I said, massage therapist and nutrition. Was I an expert in my field? Well, expert's relative. It's usually, if you know more than the audience you're speaking to, you're pretty much an expert. So, but expert, no, probably not. But did I help significantly? Absolutely. And if it was out of my scope, could I then, because I knew a lot about that actual particular industry, could I then push them to somebody who could help? Absolutely.
Nice. So when you're working with, let's kind of steer away from the professional golfer now, and let's switch gears over to kind of, again, the good amateur player, the great amateur player, or just, again, the weekend warrior. What do you find are some of the mistakes that you see those guys making when they're not working maybe with a fitness professional or working with some sort of healthcare professional? What are the mistakes that they're making in their workout routines? First of all, if they're on a workout routine, but both workout routines and nutrition-wise. Yeah,
there's an incentive-based problem here, and the players, the best in the world, are playing for millions of dollars. Of course they're going to use every advantage that they can to get that little bit of an edge. But weekend warriors, they're not incentivized enough to emulate the pros. That's my personal opinion. I think that there are some diehard people that want to follow what the pros are doing, but how hard and how difficult and how expensive is that? It's very expensive to basically get a practitioner that's going to help you with more, mobility, and then have a golf coach as well, and to formulate this team around you so that you can get better Saturday morning in your scramble. It's just, it's really difficult. I don't know that amateurs can get better. I think that I want to be careful not to make sure that they're addicted to the search of getting better rather than actually just getting better, period.
Right.
And I think there's no question you need to do what the pros are doing. However, let's just be honest and let's be very realistic. Joe Weekend Warrior doesn't want to do that. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. I mean, not many people are going to actually, the majority of the masses is what I'm speaking of right now. But I think that there is this mixture of like, hey, you know what? Can you find a halfway point for all of them? Can you find a few exercises that are significant for you that you can do on your own that are going to help you with your golf game? Absolutely. That is definitely measurable and manageable. Can you actually make a couple adjustments to your equipment? Because I feel that most standard golf clubs off the rack are too short. Most of the people that I actually look at and instruct, they are in a hunched over position all the time. I mean, they're hunched over all day long at work. Now we put them in a golf posture that's hunched over. So I like to see a very more upright kind of look. And if you look at the PGA Tour pros, they're in a very comfortable, athletic looking position. They're not hunched over like that we see every amateur. And of course, why is that? Because we only have so much to choose from. I mean, we have standard set or standard set.
Right.
You can tweak with it, but your guy that doesn't really know a lot about equipment, he's not going to be able to do that. So I'm not really answering the question, but I'm just saying that it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to merge that and blend that gap because the game is so many games rolled into one, and it's so difficult. I just don't want to push people on this extra search that distracts them from the actual act of getting better at the game of golf.
Sure. So when you have a golfer and you say he's a busy professional, he's only got a little bit limited time to practice, work out, and of course wants to play on the weekends, what are some of the things that you focus on primarily to say, hey, if there's anything, you got to get this, and this in this week if you want to get better on your weekend game?
Yeah, I actually, unfortunately, it's hard to just say like just an overall theme. This is what I do, but I actually believe in this minimum effective dosage, and this has been popularized by Tim Ferriss. But it's what is the minimal amount of effort that I can apply to something to get the most effective gains. Beyond that, it really doesn't matter. I can stay in the gym for 50 minutes, but if I can get almost the exact same results in 15 minutes, well, why wouldn't I do that? And so I think that we see over practice, and I think we see over training, and I think we see frustration setting in because we've kind of over prepared, and then we don't have anything. We're not enjoying and reaping the benefits of that. So I actually believe in a minimal effective dosage for every aspect of the game. With my clients, we will actually talk about what's the minimal effective dosage that you can apply to your body in the gym for mobility. What's the minimal effective dosage we can do for actually practicing chip shots or actually putting or your full swing movements that are going to help just kind of facilitate that CNS and PNS facilitation, better term, just muscle memory.
Right. So, and I think that's important, when somebody doesn't have a lot of time, it's perfect. The minimal effective dosage is what you call that, right?
Yep.
Figuring out, okay, where's my time best spent, basically. Yes. So when you have some limitations in your swing, maybe you know of a physical limitation. Like a couple of things that I run into a lot when evaluating clients is limited hip rotation.
Yep.
I notice a lot of guys have terrible ankles, bad dorsiflexion, or the inability to basically pull your toes up towards your shins, which limits your ability to squat and all this different stuff. So, a couple of these guys, they'll come in and they want to do all this stuff. They want to get a full blown workout in. And I'm like, hold on, let's just back up. Your ankles are bad. You can't rotate your hips. So instead of me giving you a long list of exercises to do every day, let's just focus on working on this stretch for your ankles, work on this stretch for your hips, and then we'll take care of a lot of the other stuff when you come in and work out in the gym. And I think that sometimes the golfer takes on so much responsibility and says, I got to do this, and this, that it becomes too overwhelming and they kind of give up.
that's the type of personality that's drawn to the game of golf.
You're right.
Because of its complexity, right? I mean, you would never tell someone, hey, you know what? I know would be a good idea. Like, why don't you actually sit at a desk for the majority and the preponderance of your day and then go ahead and actually go for a super hard 1 hour CrossFit workout? I mean, that's almost the equivalent of telling someone not to eat all day long and then have a huge, giant meal right before bed. You know, we know better. But because of time management issues, we don't make the right choices, and that's what that minimum effective dosage can do. You can really help apply, and this goes for any skill you want to learn. I mean, whether it's language learning and anything. So that's what I actually really try to help with my clients is, hey, you know what? I like these 3 areas. This is your homework. This is your minimum effective dosage. This is 3 things that you can work on while you're at work. I mean. Right? They could be actually they could be actually sitting at their desk, typing on the computer, and actually, if we've taught them properly, they can be putting their hips into a posterior tilt. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's something that could be super beneficial, and they could do that all day long. Or not all day long, but they could do that throughout the day. It wouldn't be a hard thing. And they're like, wow, you know what? I'm going to do this because this is actually making me better, and this is making my golf game better.
Right. So let's tie this back into Mr. Bubba Watson. And when you guys were working with, or when you were working with him, I know the audience always likes to get an inside peek at what it looks like behind the scenes with these guys, the guys that are playing the best. So what were some of the things that you had to work on with Bubba that, he struggled with a little bit, or the things that you really concentrated on?
Yeah, I mean, Bubba's actually a different case because as far as impact positions, he was in really solid impact positions. The only thing he could really benefit from is just keeping a little bit more stability in his club head through the ball, and that would just apply, that would just give him more consistency. But when you're dealing with somebody who actually has all these good impact positions, it's different. You're not really instructing, you're actually coaching. It's like a mechanic for a Ferrari. He's just tuning it up. Whereas you have a gamut of problems when you work with some amateurs or a piece of junk car. So, with Bubba, some of the things that I worked on was his biggest deficiencies. And I'll tell you, the biggest one that comes to mind was balance. I remember specifically having him do what we call airplanes. And I guess the audience can look that up online on YouTube afterwards. But airplanes where we just actually in a very normal stance. And I had him narrow those stance, which I had his feet together, and then I had him do rotations with his arms extended. Mm-hmm. So we call these airplanes. And he fell over. He actually fell over, like he had to catch himself. And I'm like, whoa, you all right there? And he's like, whoa, that was harder than I thought. And we worked on balance because it's not just working on balance, but you're actually strengthening foot muscles. You're building stability and also mobility in the ankle. And so balance was probably, that comes to mind first, is one of the things that we worked on most efficiently. And it's interesting because I don't think there's a lot of people that work on balance. I mean, even at the highest level, those PGA Tour pros, they have good balance, but they don't have great balance. I remember Bubba, I put him up against an Air Force pilot one time. We were in Jacksonville, and there's this Air Force pilot, and I know that they go through all these like Mach 7, they put them all these G's on them, and I was interested to see because they mess up their interstitial fluid, their vestibular system all the time, which is that inner ear fluid that moves back and forth. And so I had Bubba balancing on one leg. I had him with closing his eyes. I had him on a Bosu ball. I had him just moving his head back and forth. I had all these things that were going to throw him off or supposed to, but he didn't even falter, and neither did the pilot. I had to just call it a draw because it was taking too long. But that's a really fascinating kind of thing is, every day, whatever you're doing, you can work on your balance. And believe it or not, that actually is going to translate into actually helping you in your golf game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because, we've all almost seen Bubba fall down on the tee box just because the craziness that he swings, how hard he swings and the footwork that he has. But, obviously it really actually takes a lot of balance to harness that much strength and power and everything that he's got going through his impact.
It does. And his footwork is primarily saving his body. The body's innately, so it's a genius at kind of just protecting itself. Basically homeostasis, right? So, in order to not probably tear a lot of ligaments and have an ACL problem really quickly, in his knee, he falls out of that. And if you look at the current trend of swings for the last 50, 60 years, most of them lifted their lead foot, the foot closest to the target line. They lifted it so that they could actually get a nice rotation and get more of a rotation. And then they actually planted it, which gave them a great timing and actually a driving force for proper weight transfer. And then they swung at the golf ball. So it's really interesting because now Tiger, with this super freak athlete, comes along and he keeps his foot down, and now every amateur and their mother wants to actually keep their lead foot down and planted and try to hit a golf ball. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think that we put a lot of torque and unneeded tension on that lead knee by doing that.
Yeah, when you look at a lot of those old swings like Jack and Arnie and all those guys, they all let that heel come up and left knee kind of swinging in a little bit. Yep. And, I know that a couple of my buddies that are golf instructors, they actually, if they have an older patient or a client that has some limitations in the hips or whatever, they almost encourage that left heel to come up a little bit, simply because it allows a smoother rotation into the backswing. And then also, a timing thing where they can kind of plant and strike the ball, get their weight on the left foot. So it's, nobody swings the club the same way. And if you think that there's one perfect way to swing the club, I think you're just plain wrong, because obviously we see day in and day out on the PGA Tour some great swings and great players utilizing tons of different swings.
Yeah. I mean, the only consistency with those guys is they've got great club head stability that's consistent all the way through the impact zone. I mean, which is what matters anyway. So what does it matter what positions the club are in? There's no way, if we didn't know Jim Furyk was a great golfer, if we saw him, we'd be trying to fix him left and right as golf instructors. So it's kind of, that's what I was mentioning, that, I think golf will move away from being a club positional game and will move into a body positional game.
Interesting. All right, what's your favorite Bubba Watson story? Do you have one for us?
Oh boy, there's just so many. This guy is just boy. He loves life. He's super goofy. You know what? I think one of the most intriguing stories, and it's not a funny one, but it's really fascinating. He used to tell me that he has ADD. It was one of the first things he always said to me, is like, "Hey, I have ADD." And I thought, well, we got to change that right away, because I don't like that connotation. So I started saying that he had HOA. I started saying he had hyper observation awareness. And I started telling him that, you don't have ADD. You're not looking around a lot of things. You're actually processing it. And there's a big difference. You're not just object permanence, distracted by every sound and, kind of noise and sight that you see. You actually are like a macro processing computer. You're grabbing all that data and you're kind of filtering it. And so he kind of took and ran with that. And he's like, yeah, I guess I am. And we worked on a lot of different things, but there's a few things that he had this just hyper awareness that was just uncanny. I'll never forget. We were Bob Hope. We were driving to this little dark lit par 3 course that we play, at night. And he played on his phone the entire time. We got to the course. We played 9 holes, had a little fun little tournament thing, came back. I'm on my way back. I got no idea where I'm going. Of course, I'm asking Teddy, his caddy, where am I going? And Teddy's trying to pull up on Google Maps. And Bubba still has his head down. He's not looking at anything. He literally lifts his head, says, make a right here. And go down 2 lights and make a left. And he goes back down looking at his phone. And I looked at Teddy like, there's no way. So, of course, I did it just to find out. And sure enough, that was the right way back to the highway. And I thought to myself, that is scary. I mean, he wasn't paying attention at all on our way there. How did he know where we were going on our way back? Just an uncanny ability to actually be aware of things that are going on around him. And that's one of the reasons he's just so fun and has such a dynamic personality and golf game about him. You just never know what he's going to do. He can just move the ball. He sees things that nobody else can see. Very, very unique. Very, very unique. And it's just it's fun to just be a part of that for 5 years.
I was going to say, is that how he processes things on the course? And obviously you kind of answered that, but yeah, when he's out there, first of all, like I said before, it does just look like he's having fun, more so than a lot of guys sometimes. And the shots that he pulls off are just shots that, other golfers or me as a spectator, would never think of or even see, obviously, because I don't have the talent. But But so when he goes out on the course, is that how he kind of processes everything out there too?
Well, I think so. I mean, it's hard. I'm not really in his mind, but I've played an immense amount of golf with him, and he just sees stuff that doesn't really exist, you know. And he talks about it. He doesn't really like seeing straight lines. Well, of course he can see straight lines, but he gets bored super easily. He needs to kind of change it. He needs to kind of keep himself excited. I always felt that it was the impressive shots that were really difficult are the ones that he pulled off. The bland chips that he had right in front of the green sometimes only made it halfway there. I think that they didn't have enough pizzazz about them. I really think that hitting in the trees of the Masters on number 10 in the playoff was instrumental in having him win that golf tournament, because it took his mind off of what he had to do, and that's hit it on the green. And he could then focus on, all I have to do here is actually curve this 40, 50 yards. Oh, no problem. I do this all the time. And he does. He hits shots like that every day. It's just it's no thing for him. But under the pressure, it was amazing. And I think that actually have that distraction took his mind off of what was really at stake.
Nice. All right, Fish, before we wrap up, what has you excited the most in your career for this year and the upcoming years, and what's going on with FishFit?
Yeah, no, I started FishFit. I believe that the game is changing. I felt that the tour and the tour life, it's, day in and day out, it's arduous. It's a really hard thing. It's not glamorous. I mean, it really isn't. I mean, yeah, these guys they've got a lot of things, but they earn it. It's really tough, and to be a part of that team is also very difficult. And I think that the tour life has a shelf life because there's only one of you, and there's only so much you can do and so much you can give. And I really want to utilize technology to kind of put myself in more places at once. And with platforms like UberSense, I'm actually now able to help people from all over the world. I've got one student in Iceland. I got another one in Guatemala, and I'm going to be offering a subscription model pretty soon where I can actually help my clients when they're away from me or when I'm traveling it myself. So it's just technology is changing the game, and that's what I'm excited about. Is as technology moves into this space, we're going to start to see being able to be in two places at once. And so I love that I've been able to do so many different things in a particular realm, but now I'm really excited because I'm moving into golf instruction. I think it's an easier mix. I think it's very difficult to be a golf instructor and to learn the body than it would be to know the body and then learn the golf swing. So I think that I'm excited about this as the golf swing comes more towards body movements. It's an easier transition for me. And I don't know, I'm working with a lot of juniors right now. You might see me back on the PGA Tour as a golf coach, golf instructor next. I'm excited.
Very cool. And I have to ask the question, are you a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Well, actually my generation's Happy Gilmore, and I think Happy Gilmore is that's what I'm going to go for. It's for the dreamers. We all dream of hitting the golf ball far, and that we all have that same dream. Nobody says, "Oh, I'd like to hit it a little bit less." It's a golf skill that we all desire to acquire. And I think that there's, you think you figure out the game of golf and then it's gone. And I love that. It just keeps pulling you back. And the Happy Gilmore thing, I think we've all kind of experienced it where we hit that one good drive and we felt like happy. And then only to have it leave us, a hole later. So Happy Gilmore for sure.
Very fitting for a lot of our topics of conversation from this interview too, I think.
Yeah.
All right, Fish, do you have one last piece of advice for the audience, and then let everybody know where they can find you and, where they can find out more about, the subscription model that you're going to be offering in case they want to get in touch with you about, some fitness or instruction and things like that?
Yeah, I think that the most important piece, people say, what can I do to help my golf game and to help my golf fitness? And I really just press a point, move, just moving. It just helps all of our systems work together. Too many people are stagnant, and to be stagnant is to be dead. We are meant to move. And I think you'll start seeing more posture restoration. You'll start to see a lot of these guys and the best players in the world kind of using these. They're going back to the basics, right? Like, Nike makes a big constructive shoe and then they take it away and go to the minimalist. Just move our bodies and help with motion. And when a golf instructor says, hey, this is what I need you to do with your hips for rotational purposes, you actually can do it because you've actually done some yoga, you've done Pilates, you've actually used your body and moved. And that's my biggest thing. I'm always about people just getting away from the TV or the computer and actually moving their body.
That's great advice. And where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so FishFit.com, we're going to be revamping that. Instead of a la carte services, we're going to have a subscription-based, and that's probably the next month or so. And then I'm on social media. I want to be very, very influential on social media. I love social media. I love interacting with the masses. And so FishFit is going to be out there for the world to see. You can find me at FishFit Golf, and that's on most social media. I got Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I'm moving on all of them. So I want to really be out there and start kind of moving towards those platforms where the young eyeballs are. If I don't move on those, young people never have an opportunity to learn about the great game that we've all fallen in love with.
Absolutely. And everybody knows that I'll have the show notes up. I'll have the links to I'll have to fishfit.com, your Twitter, your Facebook, all that good stuff. And for all the listeners, I'm definitely going to put on the video that you sent me that's on fishfit.com, which is basically Fish's story. And I think you said you put it together for the World Golf Fitness Summit, not this most recent one, but the one before when you were a keynote presenter. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. I had to do an introduction. Nobody really knew who I was, so I put this little video together, and it was kind of a fun little adventure, and I really enjoyed it. So it'll be on there. There'll be a link for you guys to watch it.
Cool. Everybody will get a good feel for your story. It's really well done. It's almost like watching a theatrical trailer. So go ahead and head on over to 18strong.com and check that out. You can find it under Andrew Fischer if you just search in the search bar. And Fish, I want to thank you again for coming on, man. It was great talking to you, and we'll be connecting soon.
Thank you so much. I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time. 18 Strong is a great name. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it, man. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Andrew Fischer, better known as Fish from FishFit. He, gave us a little insight on Bubba and what they were working on there, and just the incredible talent that he is, first of all, but then also some of the insights into the way that he looks at the game, looks at the course, and then just where the game's going, where instruction's going. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of that. And as I mentioned, go to the show notes page, 18strong.com/Andrew Fischer, and you can find the show notes on Fish there. You can find his background, the video that we were talking about, and if you want to get in touch with him about any fitness-related stuff, instruction, that kind of stuff too, feel free to check him out. I've got his Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff on there. So once again, I want to thank you guys for joining me on the 18 Strong podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. Don't forget to train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.